Welcome, listeners, to another profound journey of courage and triumph on Advancing with Amy. Today we bring you an episode filled with raw emotion, candid revelations, and inspiring strength that promises to stir your soul. Join us as we sit down with the remarkable Cari Eskridge, a warrior who turned her battles with bipolar disorder into a beacon of hope for many. Cari's early struggles with misdiagnosis and medication, her resilient path through parenting challenges, and her ascent to becoming a successful entrepreneur while actively managing her mental health, all unveil a narrative of perseverance that will leave you spellbound. From sharing the life-altering impact of specialized treatment to discussing the power of understanding mental illness, Cari's insights are a treasure trove for anyone seeking light in the darkness of mental health battles. Discover how embracing vulnerabilities can lead to a journey of self-discovery and empowerment. Tune in to unlock the secrets of balancing life's demands with mental well-being. And let Cari's voice guide you through the complexities of living, loving, and thriving amid the waves of mental health challenges. This episode isn't just a conversation, it's a lifeline for anyone who's ever felt alone in their fight. It's a story of transformation. Don't miss out on this riveting episode of Advancing with Amy. Cari, why don't you go ahead and tell me about yourself?
Yeah. So, hi, Amy. Thank you for having me on. I am so excited to be here today. First of all, I just turned 40, which is the best thing in the entire world. I swear I feel younger today than I ever have. My husband and I have raised 5 children. 4 of them are my stepchildren, but, their mom wasn't around, so they've always been mine. Adults now. I own a wedding planning and event business. I've been doing that for about 13 years. And I'm extremely active in my local community in my Chamber of Commerce. I'm actually the chair of the local chamber ambassadors. And I volunteer for organizations. I'm a very busy person, but I really like it that way. But what is interesting about all of that and what it ties together today is that I actually have bipolar disorder, general anxiety disorder, ADHD, and PTSD. So, yeah, it's really interesting to look at everything that I have going on, knowing that I do it with these mental illnesses.
Right. Yeah, we actually talked a little bit before today, and we both have bipolar disorder, anxiety, and ADHD.
We're working. I'm working on it really well with my therapist. I do feel like I'm much better than I was a decade ago. I was in a pretty rough spot, but there's still a couple of challenges there. I get triggered once in a while, and I have to work through it. But I'm doing really well.
Good. You mentioned that you have 4 kids. How old are they?
I have 5 children. 4 of them
5. I'm sorry.
Yeah, four of them are my stepchildren. So our oldest is, 26. Holy moly, just turned 26. And then we have Bug is 23. Sorry, it changes every couple of months. Bug is 23. And then my middle boy is 22. And then my youngest daughter is 21. And our youngest son is turning 20.
Wow.
I think I got that right. I don't know. It changes constantly and it takes me a minute to think about it, but yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot, but it could be really fun at Christmas and holidays.
Oh, it is. I go overboard on holidays. I love spoiling my kids and just, it's not about the presents, about slowing down and remembering like we are together.
Right. How has it been raising all those kids with the mental health issues?
So it's really interesting. First of all, my husband and I have known each other since we were young, grew up in a small town. I knew his ex-wife, the whole shebang. But I had my son, and then 10 months later, I started dating him, and we got pretty serious pretty quickly because we'd been friends.
Right.
So I actually went from 0 kids to 5 kids in about 14 months.
Oh my gosh.
And with the older ones, yeah. And with the older ones being stepchildren, it's hard stepping into a mother role for children when you're not their mom. So it was very difficult. There were really good times, there were some not so good times, but yeah, stepping into the role for children whose mother was unable to be a mom was very difficult.
That's hard. Blended families are hard enough as it is, but then you throw that in and that's rough.
Yeah, I really, I was young. I was 21 when I started dating my husband. So I went from 0 kids to 5 kids. I mean, literally, I was 21 and I look back and I'm like, what the hell?
It's good to do it
So
while you're young, though. I
it
had one
is.
of
There was a lot
mine.
of pros and cons.
Yeah, I had one of mine at 40. I'm 53 now. She's 13. And I got to tell you, I don't have the energy that I had when I had my son when I was in my 20s.
I look at that and I love that I have a grandson being born this year.
Oh,
And so I love that
congratulations.
thank you. I love that I have this youthful energy that I get to play with my grandson. But I look back at my 20s when I was raising my children in their formative years, and I was such a mental disaster through mismanagement from my med manager that knowing what I know now, of course, we all feel this way, right? Like all the
Right.
mistakes I made, I'd be such a better mom. But at the same time, I have friends my age having kids, and I'm like, how the hell? What are you gonna? What? I like to sleep. What are you gonna do?
Exactly. So talk a little bit about the med management. How was it mismanaged and how are you doing with that now?
Yeah. So I was actually diagnosed with bipolar disorder when I was 14, which is extremely early to get a
Yeah.
diagnosis. It usually manifests around 19, 20, 21. It wasn't as well understood then. It was mid 90s. I was young. They didn't really have a handle on things. And so they just kind of threw some pills at me to see what would stick. And some of them were okay. Some of them were really, really bad. Like the side effects were awful. I don't know how sensitive your subject matter is, but I'm going to say it. I became more suicidal. I had stronger suicidal ideations. I would sleep. I wouldn't sleep. I'd sweat. I'd cry. And we were always trying different ones. And when I got pregnant, I didn't take anything, but then I had postpartum depression along with the bipolar disorder. And we tried another one and it worked okay for a while, but then it stopped. And it was just an antidepressant. It wasn't even a mood stabilizer. They were not, I think the problem was I wasn't being treated for the appropriate mental illness. I was giving
Ah,
antidepressants, not mood
so
stabilizers.
they gave you the right diagnoses, but weren't giving you the right medication?
Right. I look back and I'm like, why wasn't I on lithium? Lithium's like the blanket mood stabilizer for bipolar disorder. But I
Right.
wasn't given that. I was just given antidepressants. So I wasn't ever stabilized. And so through my 20s, raising my children, was there was so much of the time I was literally in survival mode and I wasn't being a good mom. A lot
Yeah.
of yelling, a lot of crying, a lot of outbursts, just not like I have a great relationship with my 4 younger children now. And when I got well, when I started the being well, I sat down with my daughter, my youngest daughter, and I pointed out a specific time. And I said, "Do you remember that?" And she said, "I don't think so." And I'm like, "Well, I just want you to know that like what you did was not like okay behavior, but it was completely age appropriate behavior. And it
Right.
was me that mishandled the situation. There was
Right.
nothing wrong with you. It should have been a much different conversation. It should have been, hey, that behavior is not okay. I don't want to see it again. This will be the consequence if I see it again.
Right.
Instead, I freaked out. So it's been a lot of apologizing to my children for the way I behaved because there was a lot. I mean, like I spent 10 years just yelling all the time. And there were
Yep.
great times too, right? Like there were just the most delightful, loving, amazing. I was a good mom so much. But when you're a
Yeah.
bad mom sometimes,
hmm
you know,
That,
that,
that guilt is hard.
oh man. And it
Yeah.
affects your kids. Kids tend to absorb the bad before they absorb the good. So I've talked to my kids about the trauma they still hold around my behavior and the way I mommed, and trying to help them through their healing process and give them space and stand in that and really allow them to be comfortable enough to tell me like, hey, when this happened, and I'm like, yeah, you're right. I'm not defending anything. I was mentally ill, which is the reason, but it's not an excuse. But yeah, like,
Yeah, how
yeah, that
wonderful
sucks.
that you can talk with them about that now and give them that space. I know I had a similar situation when my son was probably around 8. They had me labeled as major depression
Mm,
recurrent and gave me Prozac, which
mm,
made me mean. And
Yeah.
my temper just got out of control. And I remember going to my psychiatrist and saying, I'm screaming at my son, and I feel horrible about it. Do something, help me. And they finally realized it was bipolar and got me on the right meds. And it made a world of difference. I still was depressed and had some problems, but I was a better parent.
Yeah, and that's the thing about medication is it does it. It's not like an on and off switch. It's not a miracle. But
Right.
for me, I went to a clinic and I saw an incredible psychiatrist and a follow-up med manager. And when I finally got on the right mood stabilizer and the right antidepressant that works together and ADHD medicine, because
Yep.
holy moly, I have that. And these three meds that I've been on for a long time now are so harmonious that what it did was it gave me pause and space to learn how to
Yes.
grow and heal myself. Right. I don't think meds are just an answer, right?
Oh
And you
gosh,
can't
no.
think your way out of bipolar. But when you use them together to get healthy, the possibility is there.
Yeah, I found that with the medication, I then have the ability to work on my thought process and my behaviors and that kind of thing.
Mhm.
So it kind of is like a stepping stool.
Yeah.
You can, yeah, it gives you a step up, but it doesn't take care of everything.
Right, right. And it's so insane to me that I don't want to say insane. It's unfortunate to me that the way our medical system operates is that people don't get the education along with the medication. So a lot of people in our situation are taking medications, but they're not better. Or a lot of people are trying so hard to heal themselves holistically, which I believe is possible for some people, but they don't have the medication and they have an episode, and an episode can cause them to lose their life. So
Yeah.
so when I went just real quick, my father died after having early onset Alzheimer's, and I was his primary caregiver with my mother. And after he died, everything was a mess, and I had kind of a psychotic break. I can't really call it anything else. And my family had an intervention, and I agreed to go to the Amen Clinic, which is an incredible clinic. Dr. Daniel Amen he's an incredible brain doctor, but it was the first time ever that my mental illness had been looked at in the organ where it exists. So they actually do a scan in your brain. They look at the different places of your brain, like, hey, your amygdala overfiring, your basal ganglia not working. And so they made it, instead of like, oh, your feelings, into, okay, your brain. And when we addressed the different issues and really talked about the medication and my goals and my feelings and everything that was put together, we found the most amazing medicine regimen. And it really just took finding the right place. And it was expensive and it was hard to get to. It's not close to where I live. But I don't know. When you talk about mental illness, like, what people don't understand is that this clinic saved my life. The medication I take on a monthly basis that costs way too much money, it is literally life saving.
Oh, I agree.
If I had cancer, if you had cancer, right, you would travel 12 hours to go see the specialist and you would take the medication,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I'm
And
53 and I've never heard of having the tests that you're talking about now. This is
yeah,
new to me.
I highly recommend anybody facing any kind of mental illness or any kind of struggles at all with their brain injury, anything, to look up the Amen Clinic. They're all over the
Okay.
country. It's not where I live, but it really, in any of his works, any of his books,
Oh,
he talks
okay.
about nutrition and mental illness, talks about the organ, talks about medication, and how you can use all these things together if you want to take the holistic route instead of the medical route. I went medical because I felt like I needed something very drastic and radical, but
Right.
they really, really, they do so much, and I'm so thankful to them. And I know that there are other med managers and psychiatrists that maybe I would have eventually gotten to, but this is where I landed.
Yeah.
And I've been on these meds for 10 years this year, and I'm truly well.
That's incredible. And it must have been such a relief to have them say to you, it's your amygdala, it's your brain, it's this, it's a
Uh-huh.
physical issue.
It really is, because I don't know about you, but I've talked to a lot of other people, but with the mental illness, there's always been that shame part. Like, why can't I just get my feelings on point? Why can't I just get
Yeah.
my emotions in check? Like, I'm weak.
Hmm.
But you break your leg and you're not like, gosh, dang it, why don't you just walk on it? Just be tough. Go in a cast. You do physical therapy. You do the things you need to do to get better. So instead of that shame, that curtain of shame just fell away.
That's incredible. I love that.
Yeah. And I that's so important.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about you and your husband. You've been together so long. How has that lasted over all the highs and the lows? And
That man is the most patient, most forgiving, and most caring person I've ever met. There are times when he probably should have made me leave,
he
but
loves you.
he does love me. And we had support from family members, and he talked to the doctors and he did the research, and he knew, like, we can end this relationship, or I can love her through it until she's the person she's supposed to be, because he saw me, who I am. I was there. I was just also sick.
I'm
And
crying.
so
That's beautiful. That's
I'm crying.
absolutely beautiful.
He loved me through the darkest parts of my life when he didn't have to.
That's amazing. I'm so glad you had that.
Oh, he was really a rock for our family, and trying to take care of the kids when I wasn't, and
Yeah.
he's just an amazing man.
I'm sure he has a lot of wonderful things to say about you as well.
Oh gosh. He's so good.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about your business.
Yeah, so I own a very successful wedding and event planning business. I've been in the wedding industry for about 13 years. I started off pretty slow, just kind of helping out friends and family, doing some officiating. And then it kind of like expanded into friends of friends. And then friends of friends of friends were asking how much I would charge. And suddenly I'm
Nice.
like, I can charge for this? And so it just kind of grew, and I became more comfortable and more confident and better at what I did. And so I actually made it my full-time career. During a rough patch, I had a job for a couple of years, but I was still an event planner just for someone else. But I've been in weddings and events for 13 years, almost exclusively. I absolutely love it. I mean, my my job is to be around, like with weddings, my job is to be around two people who are in love,
Yeah.
and then celebrating a day with all their loved ones that love them. Like,
Hope.
how cool is that? And so I love it. I love wedding planning. I love the day of, all the hard work, all the rolling the tables, the 16, 18-hour days that are so hard. I come home so pumped up. It lights me up. It brings me joy.
Yeah. That's
And
great.
yeah. And then when I do other corporate events, I may not be interested in the subject matter, like law or
Right.
real estate or whatever. But what I do love is that I am creating a space that people are passionate about a subject to come together. So
That's
even when I don't care about the subject, I care about the people and the space we're creating.
that's great. I was looking at your website and it's gorgeous. And I saw you had that wonderful freebie for everybody where they can print out a list of everything they need to do to get ready for the wedding.
Yeah, so I use that with my couples, my I Do guide for you, to keep us on track and keep us moving forward. But more importantly than that, sometimes I'm just not in the budget, right? Like they want a
Hmm.
coordinator, they want a planner, but it's just not in the stars. And I would love to help everybody, but I also have to pay my mortgage. So I do offer that I Do guide for you for anybody who just wants to be kept on a forward motion, so they don't get caught up on anything, they don't forget anything. And then if they do have a family member helping them with their day, they have a guide to
Yeah.
help them through it. Because essentially my wish is just for every wedding today to be so much better than the way mine went.
Oh, have you thought about redoing yours?
My husband has asked me to do one for our 20th, and I told him no. I love weddings, but I don't want one for myself again. But we
Okay.
we are going to go somewhere tropical, and we're going to just exchange private vows on a beach at sunset.
Oh, I love that.
So
That's nice.
that to me is my second one. Yeah, that's my vow renewal. So yeah,
Yeah.
I love weddings. I don't want. My problem is, how do I not plan it. Like I could even hire a planner and I'm afraid I would still step in and try to do the work. I have a
Right.
daughter getting married this year and I'm helping her with the planning, but I hired a coordinator for the day of. I'm not lifting a chair.
Yeah.
I'm not putting a single candle on the table. I'm not doing it. I am
No.
going to be my daughter.
Good for you. Good for
Yeah.
you. So tell me a little bit about working those long days like that and having like especially the bipolar disorder. I know that
Mhm.
if I do not get enough sleep, I start to get a little manic.
Yep.
So how does
Yeah.
that work?
So I have to be extremely guarded and very careful. There was one year where I had 24 weddings on the books in about 7 months time.
Oh,
It was too much and I hurt myself. It was not okay. So I realized from that that I need to scale back and be at a healthy number, a healthy commitment. I can't do 2 or 3 weddings in a week. And so when I know that these weddings are coming up, I'll do things. If it's going to be a particularly long wedding, I'll go get IV hydration. I, of
okay.
course, make sure I'm eating healthy. I'm getting enough protein. I'm eating carbs for the energy. I'm not eating junk. And the day of, I usually am up early and it's a long day. And then I come home and I'm still jazzed. So I don't sleep.
Yeah.
Like I'm up for about 22 hours, but I make sure to organize everything to where I can sleep in. Even if I have to be at the venue the next morning, I'm like, hey, I can't be there till 10 a.m. Or I'll have the crew go down and they'll start the cleanup and then I'll get there for what I need to get there for. But it's just being aware like, okay, I'm going to be up late. What can I do to make sure I can get my minimum of 6 hours?
Right.
Minimum. I shoot for 7.5 to 9. And then I just make sure that they're not too back to back.
Right. Well, thank
Yeah,
God
because
you're the owner, so you can do that and adjust your schedule as needed. That's nice.
yeah, yeah. And I have people that work with me that also have some mental health struggles, which, almost everybody does. And
Right.
I just honor where they're at too, and I have a young man that works with me that's diabetic. I look at him and I'm like, hey, go sit down. Here's a granola bar and an orange.
Yeah,
Sit down. Right. So
that's
if I'm
great.
taking care of him with his diabetes, why would I not take care of my other gal that just has really bad anxiety and it's too much? Hey, go take a break, sit in the car on your phone. Don't talk to anybody for 15 minutes.
Yeah, they must love working for you, someone who understands.
I really want to take care of the people that work with me because I want them to keep working with me. Right. They're
Exactly.
so amazing. And I don't want them to go anywhere unless it's somewhere cooler. Then I'm okay
Right.
with
I've been very lucky because
it.
I've worked for the same company for 11 years, and that's not something a lot of people with bipolar disorder can say of a corporate employer,
Mhm.
but it's been because they have worked with me. So I've
Oh,
been
and that's
very lucky.
amazing.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
with having bipolar disorder or another protected mental health disability, what I find is that it can be very difficult to navigate a corporate world. I did work for a state institution for a while, like a college, and checking that box, yes, I have a disability.
Right.
It's kind of hard because it's hard to say, I have a disability. It's mental illness. I manage, but yes, I have a disability.
Well, and you don't want to
But
be ruled out of the interview process or
right. But at the same time, do I want to work with somebody who's going to rule me out because I have a disability?
good
Right.
point. Good
And
point.
so having those conversations, I mean, right away, there was one day I called in depressed. Can
Yeah.
you get a doctor's note? Nope. Taking a PTO.
Right.
Are you sick? You can't even ask me that. I literally just called in depressed. I cannot today. I will not be in.
Yeah. Good for
It
you for
doesn't.
being strong enough to do that.
Yeah. It doesn't matter if I have a fever or I can't get out of bed because I'm so depressed. You call out when you call out. But I always had a very open conversation about that at my job with my boss knew. I don't think they quite knew how to handle it. They were trying to make sure they didn't break the law by asking me
Right.
questions that were inappropriate. But
Yeah.
at the same time, I made sure that they knew that I wasn't going to use it as an excuse to not show up fully whenever I was there.
Exactly. Yeah. That makes sense because it doesn't get you out of your responsibility. It just means that sometimes you need to take care of yourself.
Yeah, just like when you get the flu or a cold or COVID, right? You got to stay home a couple days and you don't
Right.
always know when it's going to happen. It
Yeah.
sucks, but it's real life.
Yeah, it is what it is. So
So
tell
that's
me what,
amazing that they work with.
yeah, it is amazing. I love my manager and the whole company is amazing. So I was wondering if you were talking to someone today who was in your shoes like you were, 10 years ago, what would you say to them?
So this is hard because I'm fully aware that people have income and monetary restraints. But my biggest piece of advice is don't go to a primary care physician for your psychedelic medications, your
I agree.
psychiatric medications.
Yeah.
You really need to see a psychiatrist. Once you get established, if you can't afford to continue going in to see the psychiatrist, take that med plan to your preferred care
Hmm.
provider, to your physician. But physicians are not trained in matters of the brain. Not saying they're bad doctors. I'm saying it's not where they're trained,
Right.
you know? And
Yeah.
so I'm a firm believer that, I mean, it's hard. It's so hard for people without insurance or on state insurance. You got to fight. You got to advocate. You got to ask for help. You should see a psychiatric med manager who is equipped to handle psychiatric medication to get you in a stable position. And then if you need to hand it over to a preferred care provider, then do that. But the answer for me is, God, see a psychiatrist if at all in your power.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I'm really happy to hear you say that because I feel the same way. And I work for a managed care organization, a health insurance company. And I have a lot of members who, even though we're a Medicaid company, and so we're paying for them to go see the doctor, they are comfortable with their PCP. And I'm just like, oh, but you have these diagnoses and you need to see someone who really understands that. It's just like you were saying earlier about cancer.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you wouldn't, if you had cancer, you would go to an oncologist. You wouldn't go
Mm-hmm.
to your PCP to take care of that.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I agree with you.
Absolutely. It's so hard. And with the way the world is, it's so unfortunate. Getting mental health counseling is really hard. It's very not affordable. Either you're on Medicaid and there's a 6-month waiting list, or you're on insurance, but you haven't met your deductible and you can't afford the out of pocket, or you don't have insurance and it's $180 for an hour. It's so, so difficult. What I love, love is the programs now that are telehealth that are
Oh, yeah.
far more affordable.
Yeah.
My counselor is actually telehealth, which I was resistant to at first, but because of the financial burden, it was like, this is my only option right now.
I
No,
actually had struggled with going to see a psychiatrist and a therapist, even. The psychiatrist would push the
Mhm,
therapist, but I would say, I have a decent job, but I'm a single mom. And
mm,
therapy with insurance, the copay is $40 every time you go. And if they want you to go, a therapist, what if they want you to go once a week? That's a lot of money. And actually, now that I'm in a much better place, I've switched over to life coaching and I'm only paying like $40 a month instead of a visit. And I've found it very helpful. But that's because I'm in a place where I can do that now.
yeah, and it is really sad that a lot of people aren't in that place. I support and work with a lot of local organizations that provide free mental health and crisis care. I'm a
Oh,
big
great.
proponent. And can I share my big, fat, hairy, audacious goal?
Yes.
So I have a podcast called Sick Moms, and I talk to other moms that are facing any kind of struggle in the mental health realm. Literally, it doesn't have to be a diagnosed mental illness, just any struggles that we face as moms.
Yeah.
And my dream, my wish, my goal is that that will be successful enough that I will be able to have sponsor partners and ad partners. And I'm going to start a nonprofit organization, and through donations, merchandise, and ad dollars, I'm going to be able to provide immediate mental health care help for people across the country through telehealth services where it will pay. Like you need to see a counselor until your deductible's met. Here's the $300 you need for the next 6 sessions, and help set them up with the provider and get those bills paid.
Oh my
Um,
gosh, I love that. You're
so
just pulling at
that
my heartstrings today.
that's my goal. Where I live, Amy, is it's a beautiful area. It's called the Magic Valley in southern Idaho, and we have a 486-foot canyon half a mile from my house. You have to cross
Okay.
over it to leave town. It's beautiful, the Snake River Canyon. It's where Evil Knievel jumped.
Oh, okay.
But that bridge and that canyon, as beautiful as it is, it's also a beacon for people who are trying to end their lives. And the number of people, children, women, men, the number of people we lose off that bridge every year is absolutely devastating. And since being a person with mental illness, when I was younger, I stood on that bridge
Oh,
thinking it, right? I had suicidal ideations. I didn't attempt, but I stood there thinking about it. And so I've been in a position and I live in a place where it's so rampant and crisis care is so hard to get. You're in crisis and there's the crisis hotline, the National Crisis Hotline, but they also have limits.
yeah.
So my goal is to have this nonprofit foundation up and running as soon as I possibly can and provide actual money for actual mental health appointments to help people out of crisis and get stabilized and into a position where they can continue their mental health journey on their own.
That's beautiful. And it's so needed. And I think that one of the things is that we need more places like that because it's not just money, it's time. Like people will really be in crises, like you said, and they call into the local, like county health department to try to get an appointment with a
Mhm.
psychiatrist. And it takes them months.
Yep. Yeah. Whereas we have telehealth now, and if somebody is available the next day, it can't even be an insurance thing because it doesn't cross state lines most of the time. So it just has to
Really?
be available. If these providers would buy into the system and do it at a reduced rate and keep so many appointments a week open for me, I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to do it.
Yeah. I totally believe you are. That's incredible. And if there's anything I can do to help, please let me know.
I will lean on you when it comes time because the biggest
Good.
thing is making sure people know about it and
Yeah.
people who are willing and able to put dollars into the coffers for people who need it.
Yes. Yes. Well, thank you for being such an advocate. It's a wonderful thing.
I believe in it with every fiber of my being that this is so necessary. I can't express how just sad I am when I hear about someone who's lost their life to a mental illness. It just breaks my heart.
Have you ever lost a friend or family member?
I have lost several friends and I have children with attempts under their belt. And what's really hard, and I try to talk to especially moms about, is when your child has a suicide attempt, it's not really an attempt. Your child made the decision to take their life and it
Yes.
didn't work. So they're a survivor. They're a suicide survivor. And when you look at your baby and look up at your baby because they're taller than you. And you see that they have just come out of something where they had decided that their life was not worth living. It
Right.
is crushing. I can't fathom. I know several moms in my community who've lost their children to suicide. And my heart does not know that pain. I do
Right.
not know that pain. I
Thank
know the
God.
pain yeah, I know the pain I experienced with just the survivor of a suicide
Yeah.
attempt. And
I
that
actually,
so much.
yeah, I actually haven't told very many people this, but when I was 17, I took a bottle of pills and a bottle of vodka and I thought that would do it.
Mhm.
It just made me incredibly sick for 24 hours. And now I'm very thankful that that's all it did. But at the time, nobody knew.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it is I know what it's like to be in that place, and not everybody does. And so when somebody talks to me about that kind of situation, I come from a place of truly understanding.
yeah,
And I don't want people to get that far.
yeah.
And there's plenty of preventive measures we as a society can take. We're not going to cure mental illness, but we can come together and make it a whole lot easier to get through it
Oh,
and
definitely.
prevent those actions.
Yeah. And what's beautiful is that there are stories like yours where you have come through that journey, and you're at a place where you're doing incredible things to make beautiful days for people that are in love. And I just think what a blessing that is.
I truly feel so blessed. I had a memory pop up on my Facebook feed about when I was in Seattle to see the Amen Clinic. And I reached out to my sister-in-law, who actually went with me because
Oh, wow.
she has a mental health background, and she actually took me. She went with me and held my hand the whole time. And I reached out to her, just a text, because I didn't think I could voice it out loud. But I said, I don't think you understand that you literally saved my life.
Yeah.
Like, your actions kept me from dying.
Yeah.
And so the love and help that I've been given, I want to give to others.
That's just incredible. I love that. Well, is there anything before I let you go that you want to just leave everybody with?
Yes. So this is what I say all the time. You need to be a student of your own mental illness. I am sure that my bipolar disorder and your bipolar disorder look similar, but very different.
Yes.
And you need to do a lot of research. You need to do a lot of reading. You need to do a lot of self-reflection, write stuff down, track things. You need to become an absolute student of your mental health, your mental illness. And that's the only way you're going to learn how to get through to the other side. Medication is great. Psychiatrists, great. Counseling is great. But you have to learn about you, so you know how to keep yourself safe, how to make yourself better, and how to get to the next day.
Yeah. What great advice. Yeah. I like that. I'm a big journaler myself, so I love to read, and I like to read about those kind of issues. So that is, yeah, right on. All right. Well, I have
Excellent. I'm
really
writing a book.
enjoyed.
I'll share it with you.
Oh, are you really? What is it called?
Yeah. It's I haven't got a title for it yet, but it's about parenting with bipolar disorder.
Oh, yeah, I will definitely be first in line to get that. So I hope you stay
Excellent. I'll
in
finish
touch
it as
with
fast as
me.
possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
Thank-
absolutely need to stay in touch. This has been
Yeah.
amazing. I can't wait to listen to more and more of your episodes. I think what you're doing is absolutely phenomenal, and I appreciate you so much.
Oh, thank you. And I reciprocate that. I totally feel the same way about you. Have a good night.
Day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
As we wrap up this profoundly impactful episode of Advancing with Amy, we want to extend our deepest gratitude to Cari Eskridge for sharing her journey as a mental health warrior and neurospicy mama herself. From navigating the complexities of an early bipolar diagnosis to becoming a successful business owner and a champion for mental health awareness, Cari's story is a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. Her dedication to education, proper medical intervention, and advocacy shines as a beacon of hope for anyone facing mental health challenges. Remember, you are not alone, and seeking specialized care is a courageous and life-affirming step. If you're inspired by Cari's mission and would like to learn more about her and her event business, visit her website at idoidahoevents.com. And don't forget to check out her podcast, Sick Moms, on all major platforms. And for those of you who have been moved by our conversation, we encourage you to follow, share, and continue to support our podcast, Advancing with Amy. Together, we create a community that values understanding, healing, and open dialogue about women, mental health, and neurodiversity. Thank you for listening, and don't forget to take care of yourself. Keep advancing, warriors.